Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Let's get crafting. To get started for DIY number one, you are going to take 4 long painter sticks and you are going to cut off the handle part on the stick. So I'm going to just line it up here on my little cutting tray, and with my hacksaw I'm going to cut a straight line on all 4 of these painter sticks. Once I've got them all laid out, you can see that they're all the same length, and I'm going to just take a light brown color and I'm going to paint all of the sticks this color. Once I got all of those painted brown, I was kind of adding in some white here and there on these painter sticks to give it a little bit of that distressed wood look to it, because I wanted it to look weathered, especially because it's the fall season, and I just think it looks so much cuter with the farmhouse fall decor when it looks a little bit weathered. Once they were all dried, I took my sticks and I laid them on a piece of foam cord board. I love using foam cord board for farmhouse frames and signs because you can do some really cool things, and today I'm going to show you how I'm using this foam cord. So I went ahead and laid down my painter sticks, and then I cut where I wanted it to fit perfectly underneath those painter sticks. So you see that I have a frame here, and already this is super cheap, way cheaper than buying these frames yourself from the store. It is just so cost effective doing it this way. So then once I had my piece of foam cord cut out, I took a piece of drop cloth that I had and I just laid it right on top. Now drop cloth, when you cut it, it can shrink some, which is okay because you want to make sure you have some of that foam cord exposed so that the painter sticks not only stick to the fabric but also stick to the foam cord, so it really adheres well to the board. So you can see here with my hot glue, I'm going back and forth on it so that way it gets nice coverage with the hot glue. And now instead of having the corners be mitered, I'm sandwiching them, and you can see here that there's the sticks sandwiched with the top and the bottom. Now I'm going to move on to the next part, and I'm going to take these little pumpkins that I got from the Dollar Tree. There were, I think, 5 in the pack for $1, and they're just so cute. I thought this would be so adorable on this frame. So I'm going to take some wood putty and I'm just going to fill in those little holes because I'm not going to be stringing them up. They're meant to be for a banner, but I really love the idea more of being able to just use these on this farmhouse sign. So the colors of paint I'm going to be using are yellow, orange, and then again that brown color, but I'm going to use that brown color to help darken the orange color so that I have all different shades of orange here on these little pumpkins. Have fun with your colors. Don't worry about making it all the exact same color, which is kind of what I'm doing here because pumpkins are not always the same color. Then once they're all dry, I took a whole bunch of little leaves from Dollar Tree florals and stems, and I just cut them all up to fit the size that I needed for the pumpkins, glued some on, and then glued on little twine bows. And this twine is also in the craft section at the Dollar Tree, which is really great. Now I didn't do this to every single pumpkin. Some pumpkins had this, and then some had little raffia ribbons, and I just loved how it looked when I altered them going back and forth. Once I got all my pumpkins glued down, I moved on to the sign. I found these metal words. I love these, you guys. I hope they come out with some of these for Christmas time. I think Dollar Tree knocked it out of the park when they came out with these. So I went ahead and picked out the one that I wanted, which was Harvest, and I put some hot glue on it and just glued it right at the bottom underneath all of my pumpkins. I just think this is so cute. Then I took this heavier twine and I cut a nice piece off so I could hot glue it and then reinforce it with some duct tape at the back to make sure it really stays on well. And again, all of these supplies came from the Dollar Tree except for the drop cloth, but that was super cheap. Today is a mega video with all of my best fall DIYs to inspire you in this coming fall season. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up, as well as coming over on Instagram and tagging me if you try any of these projects. This next project, I took a big stick that I found, or branch I guess, that I found after a storm, and I've been holding on to it for some time because I knew I wanted to make this into something special for Halloween. So I wanted to clean up the top and the bottom of it to make sure that it could, not poke anyone or splinter. So I went ahead and just cut that off at the top of the bottom to clean it up. And then I took this square that you can pick up at any craft store, and I just used a coupon to get it even cheaper. Drilled a hole into this square plaque and then also into the bottom of this branch. This is to help it from splintering or having any issues. Then once I had my holes drilled, I was ready to put them together, and it's really easy. If you need an extra hand, you can always have someone hold the plaque for you. You can see here I'm struggling just a little bit because I'm doing it by myself, but it's not hard at all to do. So you just line up your screws and then screw it into place to make sure it's nice and sturdy. I actually didn't show it, but I added a little bit of hot glue in there too to make sure it really stuck together nicely. Then I'm going to take another piece of drop cloth, a nice long piece, and you can see here that I'm folding it in half, and I'm going to just take my glue. Any guesses at this point what I'm making? I then am going to take it and start wrapping it around the base of this branch, and I'm just going to keep bundling it, bunching it, whatever you want to call it, pleating it so that it's covering the wood plaque at the base of this project that I'm making. And then I'm just going to keep going around and around and around until all the fabric has been bunched up onto this exact same spot. And then once it's all done and I've got it all in place, I make sure that everything is being able to be covered. I move on to strips. So I made a whole bunch of these strips from another project. If you saw my rag banner that I put over my front door, you will know that these are leftovers from that. And so I just took these strips and I'm going to just glue them on like this, real simple, all over. And there's no rhyme or reason to this. You just keep gluing them on until it looks nice and full. Now at this point, I'm going to loosen up the fabric at the bottom that I wrapped around from earlier. So I make a snip and then I rip all the way up so that there's more, pieces that are all torn and ratty looking. The rattier it looks, the better. Okay, so I'm sure by now you guys have figured out that I'm making a witch's broom. I have wanted to make one of these forever, and so far, how much have I spent? Like nothing on this thing, because it's a stick from the yard and a wood plaque that I got with a really great coupon and some drop cloth. You could use a sheet on this. You don't have to use drop cloth. You could just take an old sheet. So really at this point I have only spent maybe $1 or $2 on this thing, and then I'm going to take this really thick twine rope and I'm going to just keep wrapping it around. The tighter you get it, the better, and then you're just going to keep hot gluing it into place to make sure that it's really nice and snug. I'm going to take some foam cord board and I'm going to cut these long strips just like this, and I believe that this was, I think it was 9 by 3.5, and I glued 2 together. And then I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to just cut out a very jagged looking edge. This is going to look like pieces of wood when we're done with them. But I wanted to use a really fun color, so I went with orange. And then I came back in with my brown and I just distressed them with some brown paint. So now that it's all dry, I made 3 of these. You can go ahead and use these Dollar Tree stickers. I ended up using 2 of them. 2 of these Dollar Tree stickers. I love these stickers. I love the font of them. And I'm going to go ahead and spell out Happy Halloween. I wanted to say Happy Halloween Witches, But when I ended up putting the word witches on, I didn't mean it to sound like the B word, you guys. We do not cuss at all in our home. And I thought it was just so cute because it was a witch's broom. So I was like, oh, happy Halloween, witches. And my 16-year-old son came downstairs, and when he saw the sign on it, he thought it said the B word. And for like 2 seconds, he was taken back by it. He didn't think that was very appropriate. So afterwards I felt bad, and I ended up changing it to Happy Halloween, Friends, because that was more appropriate. To reinforce your little signs on the stick, I went ahead and put glue on the actual branch, stuck it to it, and then flipped it over and used some more of that really thick rope twine string, and I glued them all into place. So see, you can see here it says Happy Halloween, Witches. I'm going to go ahead and just put some more hot glue down here at the bottom of the sign, because this is going to help reinforce it and keep it on there really well. Now, I've had these out for a couple days and there has not been any issues with them being foam core board. I love this DIY. You are going to need 3 different size cans: an extra small can, a medium can, and a large can. And then I'm going to use that same orange paint color that I used earlier for my candle cup, and I painted all 3 of them with 3 coats of paint. Then once I had them dried, I went ahead and drilled a big enough hole at the bottom, and I shoved in twigs that I found around our yard, and I just cut them down to size to make them look like pumpkin stems. Now, to make sure it gets a really good fit in there, I put some hot glue on it first and then shoved it down into that hole. And then on the inside of the can, I dripped hot glue down in there around that stick to really seal both sides of it so it won't pop out over time. This next step is my favorite. I picked out a couple ribbons that I had around our house and some green wire, and I took the wire first, wrapped it around the twig, and then added on some twine, some ribbon, and I put little dots of hot glue here and there as I felt that it needed it. And then when I was all done, I curled the wire. I feel like that extra little green wire on there was just so darling. Now, I will say I did pick up the wire. It was at Walmart in their craft section, but you can find colored wire anywhere. And I just loved how it looked with those little curly cubes coming up from the wire with all the twigs and the ribbon. It just made it look so adorable for this Halloween upcoming season and for fall. And then to finish off that nice rustic look, I took some sandpaper and just kind of went over it lightly, pulling off some paint here and there to give it a really finished, polished look. For craft number 4, you are going to use an extra large tin, and you are going to take a piece of computer paper and sketch down a word that you would like. Now, if you don't feel comfortable doing it with your hand, you can also print it up, and then you're going to tape it onto your extra large tin. Once you've got that in place, you're going to put a towel down first to help hold it in place, and then use a drill to drill holes into the letter. Now remember, don't get too close to each other because it will create a bigger hole, and so you want to just make sure you kind of go and drill it where the grooves divot down in on the can. This is actually a really great way to be able to keep your drill lined up on the spots, and it keeps them evenly spaced. Once you've done all your letters, go ahead and drill the holes on the top sides for your handle that we're going to put on next. Here are the letters all drilled. I just think they look so cool. And then because this is going to be outside on Halloween night, I went ahead and painted it with some black paint, and I went over with 3 coats of paint again. I'm just a fan of painting things a couple times just to make sure the color looks really sharp and it's popping well. So then you're going to take your wire and you're going to slip it through that hole, wrap it around a few times, take it over on the other side and wrap it around again, and then cut off any extra wire that you don't need. And then to finish the look, I picked up some ribbon that I had in my home and I cut off several strips and just tied them onto one side of the bucket. I just love making these mega videos for you all. So if you are enjoying this video, don't forget to check out all of these other ones that I have put together for other holidays and seasons. I will link a couple at the end of this video to keep you on that fun watching cycle. I was so excited when I came up with this idea, and I was so eager to share it with you. Now down below in the description box there is going to be a printable that you guys can get to make these. All you have to do is just print them out, and then you're going to trace everything onto a black piece of foam cord board. And you're doing this because it helps cut down on having to paint so much. The Dollar Tree sells black boards and white boards, so just pick up the black ones. Once you get everything cut out, you're then going to take these pieces that are in your printable and you're going to cut them out. But this is the tricky part. This is going to be what helps stabilize the stick of your bats. So you're going to lightly cut into the foam cord on one side, and as you can see here, I'm going to pull back the paper first, and then I'm going to use my knife and go at an angle and just pull out some of that foam core. This is because you're creating a little channel for your shish kebab stick that is going to sit so perfectly inside of it. So once you get it all figured out, you're going to take your shish kebab stick and cut it to a length that you like, and then you're going to paint it. And I'm going to make 2 of these bats, so I'm just going to double them up. And again, all the instructions are going to be in that printable. You just cut everything out, and also I will have that down below in the description box for you. So go ahead and paint everything, even your painter stick. I wanted to make sure that when I painted my painter sticks, I did not paint the insides where the glue is going to touch, just because it'll make it stronger. So here I am with that little piece that I cut out earlier. I'm going to hot glue it, put the stick on, and then look, the back of the bat looks so clean and tidy. Now here are 2 of them. You can leave them like this, or you could put some glitter on it, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to just take some Elmer's glue and generously put that on, and then take my glitter, this really chunky glitter that I found at Walmart, and I'm going to just cover the bat in the glitter, and I just keep going until I make sure everything is covered. Now here I am going back to the painter sticks for the base of the bat. I'm going to just go ahead and put the glue where I did not paint, because it's going to help it bond better together and be stronger for you for long-term use and years to come. Then once you've got the form of the painter sticks done, you're going to take your foam core square, you're going to put that down, and yes, I forgot to take the sticker off, but no worries, I'll peel it off in a second. And then you're going to take those 5 little squares that are in your printable. One of them you're going to cut out almost like a keyhole or a U shape. And I'm going to show you in a second what you're going to do with this. This is to help stabilize your bat so it doesn't tip and break over time. So you're going to take those 4 pieces and you're just going to wedge them all into each other. And then you're going to put some hot glue down on that foam core, and then you're going to take your little box and you're going to put your little box right on top of it. So this is going to make a nice little sturdy area. And then once you've got your box all glued into place, you're going to take your bat, you're going to push it down in there, and you're going to hold it in place while that hot glue continues to dry. And then this is what's going to make it super sturdy, and it looks like you bought it at a store. You're going to put some hot glue around the top of that little box, and then take this little key and slide it right on top and hot glue it into place. Now at this point your bat is in there really good, and you're going to just take some black paint real quick just to touch up any white sides. And then for a finished look, you're going to take twine and go around that little box. And when you get to the top, you just keep staying as close as you can to the edge without burning your finger. I burnt my finger a couple times doing this, but that's all right. I'm a crafter. And then I pushed the little bit of the twine down in there really nice and tight. And I took some ribbon that had a green stripe on it, snipped a little piece, pulled it tight, and then added a bow. Now you're going to need 3 different fabrics and some twine. And the twine, what you're going to do, you're going to take it out to your front door and you're going to measure it from the ground going up around the top of your door and back down on the side. Now you can make it shorter if you would like, but that's about how long I made mine. I wanted mine to be really long and dramatic. Next, you're going to take your fabric, create a little snip at the top, and following along with the weave of the fabric, you're going to just pull straight down. You're going to know right away if you are pulling it the right way, because one will easily rip versus the other will be a little too hard to rip apart. So once you have that figured out, you just get going. Keep making snips and rip all the way down until you get all the way through your fabric. Now I'm using about 1.5 yards for each of the black and the gingham, and then for that other fabric that's tan, that's actually a drop cloth, I'm using a little bit more. I'm using about 2.5 yards for that, because that fabric is super cheap and affordable if you buy it from a home improvement store. And again, it's just painter's drop cloth. So once you get those strips all done, you can cut one solely by itself, but it'll take much longer doing this. So I like to double up or triple up. I'm actually holding about 5 pieces of fabric, and I just cut them all really quick, creating about 4 inches wide of these strips. Once you get those strips all figured out, you're then going to take one of the little strips and tie it on to the twine. Now I moved up about 2 inches from the end because I want to be able to have a clean ending on this banner. So I'm going to just do a little double knot, real simple, no big deal. Once you've got that tied, I'm going to take the end of it, because otherwise you'll see it sticking out. I'm going to pull it down so it's laying flat onto the long twine that I'm going to be tying everything to. And then I'm going to take another piece of fabric and I'm going to just tie it right over it. This is going to give it a nice finished look. Plus, it's going to keep it from having these knotted pieces of fabric sliding off over time, and it'll keep everything in place looking really good for years to come. Once you've got the end figure out, you're then going to just continue on with your pattern. So I'm going to go with gingham, black, burlap, and you can just see that I laid them out there in that order. That way it helps me continue on in the pattern and I can grab things quickly. And as you tie them on, you're going to just kind of twist them opposite from each other when you're pushing them down. You don't want them to all be sliding down to the bottom in the same direction, because then it'll just be flat. What makes this banner really cute is that it's full and really poofy. And I just enjoy it so much more like that. And here is the finished look on my front door. Now these are the supplies that you're going to need to be able to create this frame. And friends, I'm telling you, this is so fun to make. So you're going to take your long paint stirrer stick, and I'm using the longer one for the big bucket size, and I'm going to cut right off where the neck is at a 45-degree angle so that the handle goes away. Now you can see that I cut one direction and then the other direction, and that is because you're going to miter these corners together into the frame. You're then going to cut 4 little squares that are going to help strengthen your frame. Once you hot glue those things all down into place, very quickly use your staple gun and staple down with 4 staples into that square that are long enough to go through both, but not too long to go through the front side of the frame. Then you're going to take some white paint and you are going to brush that frame all over the sides, the top. You don't need to do the back because no one's going to really see the back, but you can if you want to. Now the thing I like about working with these painter sticks is that they absorb the paint really well, and I wanted to still have the wood show through, so I only had to do 1 coat to get it nice and white, and a lot of the paint sucked into that wood, which is going to allow a very nice wood look to it. You know, that very farmhouse look that I love going for here on my channel. So as you can see, the wood grain is still showing through. Then to add some depth, I'm going to take some very light gray paint by just mixing some black and white together, and then with a napkin and a brush, I'm going to brush them on and wipe off as I like, just to give it a, I don't know, haunty, ghosty look. Once I've got all my gray all brushed on and it looks the way I'm happy with it, I'm going to take some sandpaper and just sand off some edges, again, to give it a weathered look. Make it look kind of old because a lot of Halloween type decor has that weathered look to it. After your paint is all dry, you're going to flip over your frame and you're going to take twine and lay them out 6 strands going in different directions to make sure you have the right length. Then with the staple gun again, you're going to staple through one side to the other, and then you're going to tie a knot, and with a little bead of hot glue just to make sure everything stays in place, you're going to put some glue right there on that knot, and then just cut off the extra strings. Now because I wanted my spiderweb to be off-centered, I went over a little bit instead of going directly across on the second string, and then I continued on with my pattern going around. Now a tip with this staple gun, at this point you're going to want to switch out to a staple that's smaller in size because you don't want to go through your frame completely. That can happen if you don't switch out your staples. When all 6 of your twines are stapled and hot glued into place, you're then going to flip it over and take a really long piece of twine, and it's so long that you're going to want to wrap it into a little bit of a circle just so that it can help you create the spider web itself. But you're going to take that very first knot and tie all of them together right in the center. Then flip it over, and I'm going to show you this twice. I go over the top of the string, under, and then I pull this little loop knot. Again, I'm going to create a little bit of a pocket. I'm going to go over the string, under the string, and then come back out and pull that slip knot. Or a loop knot, whatever you want to call this knot. And then you're just going to continue to do that over and over again, and you're never going to cut the string. You're going to just keep spiraling out wider and wider until you get all the way to the end of your string or a stopping point that you're happy with. Now when you get to the end of that string, I wanted to end mine where there were still legs kicking out to the side, so I pulled down just like you would see on a natural spider web where the spider attaches it back into the circle. I tied it to that previous knot that I had done on the last round, and I hot glued together. And here is the finished look. I have two channels, Heidi Sonboul Home and Heidi Sonboul DIY. I love being here on YouTube, and I'm so grateful for everyone who has clicked the subscribe button and who has stuck around here on my channel. Thank you all so much for being a friend and coming back for each new video. The next project we're going to be doing is a boo sign, and the tools you're going to need are something to be able to push pressure down onto the foam cord board. So I'm going to be using this little metal tool that I actually use for doing flowers on nails whenever my daughter wants flowers on her little toes. But you can use anything like the back of a paintbrush or a pencil, just something that has a nice tip that will allow you to press in without it puncturing all the way through the paper. So here's what it looks like when you pull back the paper. You can see that it fully indented it without it having any issues, and then now you know where you need to cut, and it's going to just make it so quick to be able to cut out the letters that you want. I mean, can you just imagine how many cool things you can do with these letters and being able to trace on foam cord board just like this? So I went ahead and I cut out my letters, the B and the two O's, and then once I was all done getting it cut out, I went through and cleaned it up a little bit. Now it doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to be doing something with it, which is painting. You can see that I found my paintbrush because I could not bear those foam brushes anymore. But I basically painted my letters where the white was showing and then went over the black again. The next step I'm going to move on to is the raffia. I like to take the raffia and get strands of it and then twist them just like I'm doing here in this video, and then I tie my bow. This makes it so that your bow looks really clean without it looking too crazy and ratty. I'm not a fan of it when it looks like that. I feel like this is the way to get a nice clean bow whenever you're working with this particular texture. Now that the paint is dry, I took some Elmer's glue and I am going to just brush that all over my letters because I just love a little glitter for Halloween. I don't like glitter on everything, but I just felt like this sign could really use it and just make it look, I don't know, cuter with glitter on it. You don't have to do the glitter, you can skip that part if you don't like glitter. Then once the glitter was dry, I took some more of the raffia string and I tied the two O's together, added some more hot glue, and then added on the bow. And then I did the same thing with the B. Now moving on up at the top, I'm going to take some of this ribbon that I also got from the Dollar Tree. If you're not good at tying bows, or you're working with a ribbon that has one pattern on one side and not on the other like this one does with the lace, I like to cut two strips just like this, smush them into the middle, take another strip and wrap it around the bow, and this allows you to be able to get a really pretty bow without struggling having to tie it, and then you just fold it underneath to give it a nice clean finish. And then you can just fluff your bow up really easy without any problems. And then you take another piece, snip off at an angle for the ends, and you've got yourself a cute bow. I'm now needing a piece of raffia to be able to connect the bow to the ribbon, so I just went a little loop around the B at the top, and then I'm going to glue that all in place with the bow. Once I was finished with that bow, I created a little loop so that I would have a place to be able to hang it up. this dictionary from a thrift store for $1, and I have been holding on to it for quite some time, so I knew this would be the perfect thing for this project. I'm going to take some papers just from the back of the book, and once I've got them ripped out, I'm going to just trim them down so that they follow along the lines of those columns of the papers. Once I get enough cut out, I'm then going to take 3 at a time, make sure that they look right, roll them all up, and then with a little bit of hot glue, I'm going to glue them into place. Now, this is something great to do when you're watching a movie because you're going to need quite a few of these to create your wreath. Then to create the wreath form, I'm going to take a piece of foam cord board. I used a large bowl first and then used a hamper to create an even bigger ring circle. Once your foam circle is cut out, you're then going to just take these paper rolls and you are going to glue them down and into place. If you get to spots where they don't fit right because there's a little bit of an angle, just cut a piece off and then glue that down into place. Then you're going to move on to the second layer. The second layer is going to be a little bit more tilty looking. You're not going to go so straight on. And then the third layer is going to take some twine and tie it around these little bundles of paper, and then you're going to hot glue them onto the wreath. This part was my favorite part because it really started to take life at this point, and I just loved how it was turning out. Plus it was fun trying to decide where I wanted each one to lay and look nice in their spots. Then you're going to just take some sticks from your yard, and then I picked up these birds during a sale after Christmas. They have these all over the place, but I found them on sale 85% off. So I'm going to paint these 2 sticks and these birds. Now you could pick up a crow if you really want to, but I was on a budget and I wanted to make these look cute and show you guys that you don't have to spend a ton of money on crafts. So once they're all painted black, I'm going to move on to my bow. Creating a bow is super simple, you guys. The biggest trick is to make sure you have a wired ribbon because it helps you form the bow better. But I'm going to take 6 strands of ribbon, and 5 of them are going to be pulled into the center and hot glued. And these are all the exact same length, and it's to the length of your desire. You don't have to get too technical with this, so I'm going to just let you guys figure out the length that you like best and how big you want your bow. And then you're going to just stack them all on top of each other, take a piece of twine, pull it really tight, and tie a knot. Then you're going to go ahead and just fluff it all out until you get to the desired look that you want. Now on that 6th ribbon that we did not use, you're going to go ahead and take it and you're going to hot glue that to the wreath form, so that way you have something to hang the wreath up with and you can tie your bow to it. Now it's time to add the sticks. So you're just going to put them into the placing that you like, kind of tuck them underneath some of the scrolls of paper so it looks like they've been there for a while, and then hot glue them into place as well as your 2 little birds. I headed to my local thrift store and I picked up 2 things that I wanted to turn into some Halloween DIYs. The very first one was this forgotten about tray. It is solid metal. I thought this was the coolest tray. I actually really liked the fruit on it, but I wanted to do something for Halloween with it, and I had a really cute idea that I think you guys are all gonna like. So up first, what you're gonna do is you are going to just make sure your tray is nice and clean, and once it is, you're gonna take some black spray paint. Go ahead and spray paint the top surface of that tray. Once it dries, you're then going to take some painter's tape. I find that painter's tape works best If you don't have painter's tape, washi tape can also work really well. What you're going to do is you're going to take several strips of that painter's tape and lay them on top of each other, and then cut out 2 triangle eyes, 1 triangle nose, and then a smile for your pumpkin face. After you get those in the place that you would like them, and remember you guys, you can use whatever you want. You don't have to just do a pumpkin. You could also do a Christmas tree if you find a tray like this around Christmas time. How cute could that be to do a DIY with it? Then I took orange spray paint and spray painted all over the top and bottom of that tray. Once the tray was completely dry, I was able to peel back that painter's tape, revealing the pumpkin eyes, nose, and mouth. I just think he is the cutest little tray to put on our coffee table in the living room. It's a great place to corral remote controls or maybe a little snack or something. I don't know. I just thought it was so cute to add this as my Halloween home decor. The second item I picked up, I paid a little bit more than I wanted to for it. It was $2.99. I was kind of bummed out about that, but I used a 20% off coupon, so I got that even a little bit less than the $2.99, so I was okay with it and I bought it. It's a metal vase that is silver or pewter, whatever you would want to call it, and I decided again to do a really fun DIY with it. So I took some puffy paints that I already had on hand. With the puffy paint, I drew some lines going back and forth to create a grid line that would prepare for me to make a spider web on it. Making spider webs are super easy. You just go with a little swag in between each line until you connect all the way around and make your spider web. Spray painted over the whole thing, which is now going to give that raised look on that spider web on that metal vase. I just thought that looked so cool. And then I went outside, found some twigs, then I took some foam from the Dollar Tree, I shoved it down into this vase that I have spray painted black, shoved my twigs in there, hot glued everything together. Then added in some moss and some rocks to give it that finished graveyard spooky look. I don't like things being too ghoulishly spooky, but I do like just a tiny bit, and I thought that this would just be so cute. Now this project is a little more advanced, but it is super affordable. My total supplies and materials were about $4.25, I believe. So what you're gonna need are longer painter sticks and 3 picket fence posts. So you're gonna lay them out next to each other, take those painter sticks, lie them on top, and figure out where you need your cut lines for your painter sticks. Then using a little miter saw and a box to cut in, you're going to go ahead and make those cut. Once you have those cut all out, you're ready to paint. Now I love orange, so I'm going to paint one side orange, and I'm going to lessen it because I just like more of a sherbety type orange, like a creamy orange. So once I've got the color all right, I'm going to go ahead and paint with a thick brush. It helps it go on much easier, and paint all three of those posts as well as the painter stick. Now you don't need to paint the backside because the backside is going to be a different color. Now before I move on to screwing them together, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to paint the backside white. Now this is because, like I said, this is going to be a double-sided project. So go ahead and give a nice thick coat of white paint. You can whitewash this, that could be really pretty too, but I was going for a nice white look. I'm also going to be painting the sides because I want the sides to be white, since you'll be seeing that more primarily throughout the year. And then I'm going to paint two more of those painter sticks that I cut down to size. Once everything has been painted and dried, I'm ready to go ahead and assemble it together. You can figure out the alignment that you would like, how far apart you want the width to be on these. I wanted mine to have a little bit of a spacing between them, that way so it looks, you know, a little more shiplappy, I guess is what I'm looking for. But you can also put them really close. It's just your desire of how close or far apart you want. And since I'm going to be putting letters on mine, I wanted them to be a little bit closer. So using a drill, it really helps cut down on splitting those painter sticks. You're going to go ahead and just drill out 3 holes for the orange side, drill in some screws that are long enough that won't go all the way through, and then use some paint to cover up where those screws were. You could show the screws if you want that look, but I didn't personally. Now, not everybody has a Cricut or a Silhouette, and I wanted you guys to see that you don't have to only use vinyl. And I know that a lot of people are really afraid of doing hand painted letters, so I'm going to show you today that all you have to do is print out your letters on a printer, cut out the letters, and trace them on. At that point, it becomes like a coloring book, and all you have to do is color inside of the lines and go just a little bit over onto the pencil line to hide those pencil lines, and you look like you are really good at painting letters. You can do this with any font you want. That's the best part about it. As long as you have the font where it can be printed on your programs on your computer, it will be able to allow you to use different fonts. Now, my trick with painting by hand is to put on some music. There is something so therapeutic about painting by hand and having music playing at the same time. It really helps you unwind and de-stress. At least it does for me. Once you get your letters all painted on, they are going to look so cute popping on this orange background, and you're ready to flip it over and to work on the white side. Now, this is the reason why I'm saying it's a double-sided welcome sign, because you can use the orange side for fall and you can use the white side for all the other months. And we're going to be using black letters. And I want you to imagine you can do whatever colors you want for this. It's just so cute all year round. Now you're going to use your other 2 painter white sticks, and instead of lining them up back to back with the orange side, you're going to bump them a little bit higher. You're going to drill 2 holes this time. This is going to make this sign super sturdy, having screws being on the orange side and the white side. And the reason why you're going to go higher than the orange side's painter stick is because you want to be able to make sure they don't bump into screws. Make sure your screws aren't too long. Now the drill really is helpful. As you can see here on the bottom, I did not drill holes like I did the top, and I wanted you to see that if it does crack, you can either use some paint to fill in those cracks, or you can use some wood putty and then paint over it. But I just used paint. I wanted you guys to see that if you don't have a drill, no worries, you just fill in those cracks. you're going to go ahead and just trace on your letters once again that you cut out for the orange side. Trace them all down, and then I used black paint. I really liked the way the black and the white looked together. I thought it looked really crisp and clean, and it will go well with any home decor. Again, just slow down, take your time, and paint inside the lines and a little bit over onto the pencil line to make sure you don't see the pencil line, to give it a nice finished look. And this is so affordable because you can get a bottle of paint and just use the tiniest amount for about $1 is the bottle of paint. And painting on the letter, I mean, saves you so much money. Vinyl can be really expensive. And here is the completed look. Now, if you notice at the top of the picket fence, it is the cutest little notches to be able to put in a ribbon. So I added a ribbon to the top of my sign to give it a nice look. When we very first bought this home, we had this huge double trunk pine tree right next to our home, and it was leaning on our roof. So the first thing we did when we moved in was had it cut down. And when we had it cut down, we had our friend who cut it down for us to cut big sections of logs because we wanted to use it around a bonfire pit. And over time, they weren't being used. They just kind of got pushed to the side of our house and our property. And then I realized, wait a second, I want to paint one of those logs. Now, these logs have been sitting on the side of my house for a while, so the very first thing I wanted to do is just give it a really quick sand down so that anything weird that might have been growing on it or anything that might have just been kind of bumpy or splintering, I could go ahead and take all of that off with my electric sander. Once I got everything all sanded off and dusted off, I was ready to roll it into my house. Now, these are pretty heavy logs because they were from a tree, so I did struggle a little rolling it into the house, but once I got it into the house, I rolled it onto a shower curtain. Friends, I like to paint inside my house a lot because our weather here doesn't really permit it a lot of the times, so we have just a shower curtain that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I lay that on my floor in the office when I want to paint something. But I rolled it onto the shower curtain, and then I wanted to use the things I had on hand because I'm trying not to spend any money on this project. I wanted it to be a zero budget. So I took out a bunch of different shades of orange paint that I had, and I just kind of mixed them together until I got a really pretty pumpkin color that I was happy with. Now, wanting to make sure that I still showed some of the trunk because I love the idea of it having raw wood on it still and having that fall feeling to it and rustic, I took some painter's tape and I went around about 4 or 5 inches up from the bottom and just taped around the bottom of the trunk to allow me to still have that raw wood showing and a paint nice clean line where I'm gonna have the paint moving up to the top of the trunk. Now, I wanted to make sure the color really popped, so I painted the trunk a couple of different times, making sure the color was really saturated on there because once I had it all painted orange, I was ready to paint on a pumpkin face. Okay, so if you don't know, my birthday's actually on Halloween, so Halloween kind of holds a special place in my heart. I'm not a big fan of like the goblins and the creepy stuff. I'm more of like cute pumpkins and candy corn, just fun, happy, fall time type things. So I did a little research of what kind of face I wanted to put on my pumpkin, and once I settled on it, I went ahead and took a pencil and just freehanded on a face. Now, if you ever want to do something like this yourself and you have a trunk or you know someone that has a trunk that they're cutting down a tree from, it's really simple. You don't have to freehand it by yourself. You can just print it out and then cut out the eyes and the mouth and try to blow them up in size a little bit so that it matches the shape and width of the actual trunk so it's not too small on your pumpkin trunk, and then just trace them on as a template. So once I had my pencil lines all in place, I went ahead and just took a smaller brush and painted in the happy face of the pumpkin.
friends, I know I'm a little excited about this project, but it was one of those things that kind of organically happened for me, and I just love how it turned out, and I just think it is just so cute on my front porch.
We're gonna take this garden divider, I don't know what this thing is called, but this thing from the garden, and these long painter sticks, and we are going to turn them into a really cute artwork that you can hang up on your wall. So what we're going to do first is we are going to take these long painter sticks and we are going to cut them down to size. And we are going to be using my saw and my miter box. I will link it down below. A lot of you have been asking about it. I love this tool. Now typically I show you in the video how I first cut it, and then I move over to my carpet because then it doesn't slide so much. I've had some people asking me, that's what I really do when I'm cutting it, but I'm just showing you this is basically how I cut my pieces, and then I move over to the carpet. So once I've got all of mine cut on both ends, I'm going to go ahead and take those mitered edges and put them together with some wood glue and some hot glue, so I've got that long-term, short-term seal where they're going to really hold together as a nice frame. I really like making high-end Dollar Tree DIYs here on my channel, and I like to try to challenge you all to push yourself to new creativities and just have fun making things that are outside of your comfort level and learn and grow with each new project you make. So once you've got that glue all in place, you're going to add a little bit more, and then you're going to take these little pieces of the triangles. These will come off as you're cutting your wood pieces, and you're just going to put those on to help support those corners because you don't want them to break. We want to make this nice and sturdy, like I said, so it's high end. And then you're going to just staple it into place on all four of those corners, and you have created yourself your very own frame. Now we're going to move ahead and start cutting this thing apart. Again, I don't know what this thing is called, but it's basically for flower beds, and you can put them all around the edges and it makes them look really cute. But we're going to take it and we're going to cut it up. So you can see here that I cut off this rounded part, and I'm snipping away any little extra edges that I don't want, so it's as smooth as I possibly can get it. And we're going to do that 4 times, and those are going to go in each corner of this frame. So make sure you just take your time cutting them. They actually cut pretty easy, but you can accidentally cut too far if you go too fast. So just go really slow. As you can see here, I'm just taking my time. I did speed it up for interest of time in this video not being too long, but just again, take your time and just, you know, cut around those edges and make sure you're being thoughtful on that curve, because that's probably the trickiest part you're going to cut. So you're going to actually need 2 of these items from the Dollar Tree, these garden flower bed dividers, and we are going to be cutting them all up. So now that we've got those 4 rounded pieces, now we're going to go towards the bottom of these garden dividers, and we are going to cut off, and you can see here you want it to almost look like a T. This is the bottom part of this item that we're cutting up, and that's because we're going to use that to shove underneath the frame. That's going to become the thing that is going to really support this whole thing and keep all of these pieces together without it falling apart and, you know, over time breaking. So you can see here that on the back side I flipped it over, I put down some hot glue first, and now I'm going to staple it onto the frame so it's really strong and sturdy. That way, so there's some of this cool lattice work onto the frame, and then other pieces are glued, and it's all nice and secure. So once I've got those all 4 secure onto the frame, I'm going to go ahead and start hot gluing on these rounder pieces, these curved with the little curly piece and this little arrow. We're going to put those right in the corner and support them with some glue, and then on the back side, the front side, you saw me put down the hot glue, and then on the back side I'm going to add in some E6000 just to really make sure it's hot glued and long-term glued together. Now we're going to take the second one that we have of these garden flower bed dividers. Please tell me what the thing is called, because I'm going to be using these in another DIY, and it would be so great if someone could tell me what this is called. I just can't remember. And then we're going to take this next piece. You saw how I cut out that little part that's an arrow, and also these rounded pieces, because we're going to take them and create a circle. So you can see here we need these two pieces that we just cut out. And the circle's really easy to put together. You're just going to take 3 of these curved edges and you're going to bring them all together with some hot glue and then just push them all into place and they will make a perfect circle. Now these other pieces, like I just showed you, that I cut out. So you can see here that I'm going to be pointing the arrow in now. And this is the same thing that we cut on that first cut that was rounded that we're putting in the corners. We're just taking off that rounded top. And then we're gonna just nestle that in. See how I flipped it over? And I'm putting them underneath that piece that's in the corner. You wanna make sure everything is nice and glued down really well. And then these extra pieces from that T that we cut earlier with the little curl on it, we don't want those long pieces. I've decided to just go ahead and cut those away. You can see here that that slipped and moved a little bit. I need to hold it down a little bit longer with some hot glue. And while that's drying, I went ahead and just cut off the last of those long pieces. We don't want those to be there. And then once we've got everything cut and everything's all hot glued and held into place and nice and sturdy, go ahead and flip it over. And now we're going to take the circle and we are going to put hot glue on that and add that into the center of this really cool art frame. So the cool thing about this is that it actually is really strong and sturdy because I've reinforced it with E6000 and hot glue, and I do recommend flipping it over one more time to the back side and adding in more hot glue where you think you need it. It's going to be really sturdy the more hot glue you add to the back. And then when you're done, just pull off all the little strings because you're going to have hot glue strings everywhere when you're putting this thing together. I did. So just take the time to take those all off. Now you're going to go ahead and take some white paint and paint the frame. I will say I wish that I had done this before I started putting on all this black lattice ironwork, but you know, sometimes when I'm filming, I don't think about things as I'm going, and I'm just making sure you all can see what I'm doing. So here is the finished look. These are the supplies we're going to be using for our project. A galvanized tin bucket from the Dollar Tree, as well as these wood beads that they have in their craft section. Now, when you go to take off the handle, I have realized that this wire on this bucket was actually really strong, well quality wire. So when you're taking it off, just make sure you don't bend your bucket too rough because it can cause an issue with the original punch holes to rip or tear. But you're going to want to make sure that the end of this handle is straight as possible. So what I did, I actually just cut off the original bend fold area so that way I had a nice clean line to be able to fish on all of these beads. So I'm going to use a medium and a large, and I'm going to just keep going back and forth in the two sizes until I get to the very end of my wire. This part is really fun and easy to do, and I found that I had extra beads left over, which was really great. So at this point, when you're finishing putting them all on, you're gonna want to make sure you have about an inch at the very bottom of your handle, because you need to be able to put that back on the bucket to bend the wires in. Another tip is, when you get to the end and you have that inch, go ahead and just bend in those wires on the end. Don't bend them all the way up, but just enough to be able to hold the beads in place while you're bending everything together. So you can see here that I bent it first a little bit, put it on, and then now I'm tightening the rest to make sure it all fits on there nicely. Then at this point, once your wires are nice and tight and snug on there, you can go ahead and move on to the next step, which is going to be taking it outside and giving a nice coat of spray paint. Once everything is nice and dry, go ahead and take 3 different shades of brown. I'm using a light, a medium, and a dark. And we're going to use the first one, the lightest one, to coat all of the beads and all the crevices all the way over the whole thing. You're going to do it on both of the sides. This is going to create a really nice wood look when you have these 3 different tones versus just only painting it one color, which will make them look like they're not real and they just were painted. Here I am, I'm using a dry brush technique for the next color up. I'm just lightly brushing it on and using a napkin to wipe off anything that's too saturated on my paintbrush. And I'm just taking my time going over it and dabbing on different tints and shades of the brown, because this will really make it look just like wood. Now at this point we are going to decorate the bucket. I think this is so cute. I have seen some of these buckets online with this really cute buffalo check or stripes or gingham on it, and they're so expensive. I could not believe it, and when I realized, wait a second, I can use the bucket from the Dollar Tree, I knew that this would be perfect. So at this point we're going to just take a nice angled paintbrush and we are going to paint black lines. And friends, you could do this in any color you want. I thought this could be really cute to do this exact same DIY, but maybe in Christmas red or a Christmas green, and that could be really pretty too. So here I am, I'm just painting on my nice thick lines, and once I've gotten all the way around the bucket, I'm gonna now reverse the other direction. I do recommend letting it dry just a tiny bit. At this point, once I got all the way around, it was dry enough to be able to go, because otherwise you could create some streak lines and that won't look so good. But remember, you don't have to do this super perfect. I'm just freehanding this. If you want to use painter's tape to make it look really clean and crisp, you can totally do that. But I was going for a little bit more of a wonky or playful look to it. I didn't want it to be too crisp on the lines because I like the idea of it being, like I said, just a little more wonky. So now at this point I'm going to go ahead and go in and add in my gray so that way I can have a really pretty buffalo check look. So I'm just going on all of the areas that are not connecting points, and I realized afterwards I probably could have done the gray lines first and then added the black. I probably would have had a lot less to paint. So just keep that in mind. Whatever colors you're working with, the lighter color is the one that actually needs to be seen the most. Now we're going to move on to a different size bucket from the Dollar Tree. This one I also spray painted on the outside. I left the inside where it's galvanized. I thought that would be really cute. And I'm going to use a smaller brush. The reason why I'm going to be doing this one is because I want to show you how just switching up the brush size can really change the look of a bucket. Again, I'm going for that cute wonky look because I'm planning on using these throughout the summer going into the fall time and Halloween time. I thought these would just be so cute to have a more playful line on them. And again, if you want to have a straighter line, you can totally use painter's tape, but I want you to see how just me going quickly over the bucket, what a cute look this can be too. And if you have any mess ups, just take a wipey and wipe it off. When you're using a spray paint as the base, it allows you to wipe it away nicely. So once I've gotten all the way around, I'm now going to switch my direction and I'm going to create my lines going the other way. I really loved doing this. I thought this was so therapeutic and just calming, and I had so much fun just taking my time going around. Now the trick with painting a line around in a circle, you're going to want to keep your pinky in the same exact spot as you're going, because that's going to give you the nice spacing that you need as you're turning your bucket, and that will keep your line straight. So you can see here I keep using my pinky as I'm going. I keep putting it out and touching it out, and then as I get further and further over, I just kind of keep eyeballing it at this point, but because I had a really good jump point from the bottom where I try to keep the line as straight as possible. And as you keep moving up the bucket, it just gets cuter and cuter as you go. Now we could leave it like this, or we could add a little bit more detail to it. But again, can you imagine if you did this with red, how cute this could be for Christmas time? Or if you decided to do different colors and created more of a plaid look to the bucket. There are so many cute things you can do with these buckets from the Dollar Tree, and they're just only $1. So this is the point. We're going to add some twine around the handles. Just twist it around and around and glue it down into place to have a nice completed cute handle, and your buckets are ready to be displayed. To get started for craft number 1, you're going to need a couple of things. A medium-sized tin can, white paint, orange paint, a wooden candlestick holder, and then some ribbon. Now I painted my can with 3 coats of white paint. As it was drying, I moved over to the candlestick holder. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby and used a 40% off coupon, so I paid, I think it was $1.50 for this thing. And then I'm going to just paint that with 1 coat of white paint. Now the orange color was a little too bright, so I went ahead and lightened it with some white paint, and once I got that ready, I took some painter's tape and created 2 stripes on here so that when I paint it, this tin is going to have a really darling stripe look to it. For the orange paint, I went over it with 2 coats of paint just to make sure that the color was really bright and sharp. And as you can see, the inside of my tin needed another coat of paint. Once I was all done painting everything, I took my drill and just to help this process be easier, I drilled a hole in the bottom of the tin can. And I also didn't show it, but into the candlestick holder just a little bit as well to make sure the screw goes through and lines up easily. Then you're going to take the screw and place it in, and to make sure it's nice and secure in place before you start screwing, I'm going to just take some hot glue and just hot glue that right on there so it's all nice and snug and a good finished clean look at the bottom. And then I'm going to just take that screw and screw it all the way in so that it's all fastened together and nice and sturdy. Now the bottom base of this candlestick holder I felt was a flat surface enough, but if you feel like you want a bigger base in the bottom, you could get another wood plaque that's a square it's in the same section as these candle holders, and you would just screw that into the bottom of that to make it a wider base. But I felt like the base of this was just fine as it was. Once I added a couple of strands of ribbon, it was a finished cute little candle cup holder. The second craft today I'm going to be sharing is a rustic flower vase, and I'm going to make 4 of them, so I'm going to say vases. So I'm just taking 4 cans, and this is a small size. I'm not going to paint the middle because I'm going to have fabric on that part, so I'm just going to go around the tops and the bottom, and I don't even need to paint the inside on these. And then I'm going to take some drop cloth that I had around our house. I cut them into strips, and the strips, depending on your can, it can be a little bit wider or smaller, but for this particular one, it was about 2 inches wide. I went ahead and frayed the edges, added a little hot glue, and just simply wrapped it around. And then I'm going to hot glue it in place at the end. Once that was all hot glued into place, I took all the cans and lined them up next to each other, and I freehanded on the letters F-A-L-L to spell out fall. And it was just a simple, real quick sketch. I think anybody can do this. You don't need to use a stencil. And then once I sketched them on with a pencil, I just took a small paintbrush with black paint and went right over it. And now keep in mind, you don't have to make these look super perfect. It's kind of the best part about farmhouse home decor is that a little bit of that rustic look goes a long way with this type of style. So I'm just really quickly going over those pencil lines and just, as you can see, painting right over them. Now when they were all done drying, I wanted to lessen how sharp and bright these looked. I wanted to give it more of that rustic weather look. So the simple trick to do that is by getting a piece of sandpaper, and then you're just gonna rub right over that fabric, and it will pull off that top coat of that paint. Make sure it's really dry before you do this process because you can smear that image obviously. But once that was all done, I was ready to insert some pieces of foam. I picked up this foam square from the Dollar Tree and I just cut it into 4 pieces and then hot glued it down in. And then to finish and complete the look, I took some of these really Darling florals that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. I picked up 2 bushels and it was enough for these 4 tins. And then I just filled in all of the vases.
Now, if you have not been to the Dollar Tree recently, friends, they have really stepped up their florals this year. I felt like the quality of their florals were way better. There were even more to the bushel on each stem that they were giving you. I just felt like for $1, it was really worth the investment of picking up some florals there this season. Now what you're gonna need are these Dollar Tree bowls. Inside of the set there is a larger one and a smaller one, which is perfect, so I picked up 2 of them to make 2 different sizes of these floral spheres. Now to put them together, it is super simple. You can use E6000 or you can also use hot glue. And then if you want to help make them a little stronger, you can take some twine and wrap them around just to make sure that it all stays in place, which is what I'm going to do for my bowls. With me tying the twine around the bowls, it actually is allowing me to be able to have a loop at the top of it, so I'm going to go ahead and use that later on down the road to be able to attach ribbon to, a really beautiful ribbon. Now the rest of this project is pretty simple. You're just going to take your florals, whatever you want, and you're going to hot glue them all over your spheres. So I have decided to go with more of a yellowy color scheme on these ones because I am just so drawn to sunflowers this year for some reason. I really am just enjoying how sunflowers look this year. Now I know some of you don't have fall on your minds yet, but it is only a month away and it is rapidly approaching, and I happen to really love fall because my birthday happens to be on Halloween, and this year I will be 38. So, you know, I just really love fall and all the fun colors that come with it. They're just so warm and inviting as we say goodbye to summer and welcome in those beautiful colors. The last thing you need to do is just take a hook of some kind, screw it into your ceiling, and then hang them up. Now I really love them being off balanced from each other, so one is going to hang a little bit higher than the other one, and I just adore how they look as people are coming in to be able to see.
Now we're going to be taking some painter sticks and we are going to move on to the next DIY. I'm using 3 packs of the smaller painter sticks that you can get from your home improvement store, and each one has 10 inside of it. We won't be needing all of them, but we're going to get close to using all of them. So first what we're going to do is we are going to lay out our painter sticks the length of an actual painter stick, and you're going to want to make sure you have them all facing the same direction so that you can cover up those little handles where you can see them divoting in. We don't want that to be seen because what we're doing right now is we're going to be creating almost, we're going to call it a barn door. That's what we're going to go with, a really cute barn door. And we're going to do 2 sides just like you saw me do there. And now we're going to glue them together in the middle. So we're going to take a lot of hot glue at this point and we're going to just give a nice coating on it, and then we're going to take another painter stick, and we're going to lay that right on it to make sure it has a nice support system in the middle so it doesn't have any problems. Once it's dry, you can go ahead and flip it over. You can see that I put a popsicle stick under, I said popsicle stick, painter stick. I use so many wood sticks here on my channel, sometimes I do that. But you can see that I put one underneath it to create a little support system underneath it so it could lay flat. And then on the front, like you saw there, I put two at an angle to create a Z zigzag look on it. And now I'm going to use my staple gun, and I'm just going to staple on the back side anywhere where there's a connecting point, so that way it's really strong and sturdy. At this point, it should be all strong with the staples and the hot glue, and you can go ahead and add whatever color you want to it. You could do red, which could be really pretty, where it's got that pretty barn door look. I'm going to go with white because, well, I like white, and I think you all know that. So I'm going to add on a pretty coat of white paint, and I do go in a little bit later and distress it. I forgot to film that part, but basically paint it whatever color you want. Now at this point, I'm going to use this ribbon. I picked this really thick ribbon up after all of the Christmas sales were going on at the end of Christmas last year. I highly recommend when Christmas is done, go to your craft stores and buy this ribbon. You can get tons of it for so cheap. I think I ended up spending like $3 for this huge roll of this beautiful, beautiful burlappy type ribbon. And then I just took two really long strands of it, and I'm now going to take some eucalyptus. I also picked this up right now while they have all of their spring florals, just basically giving it away for free. I ended up buying this for, I think it was like $1.30 for this eucalyptus stem, and they were originally almost $13. I could not believe how cheap I was getting these. So right now is a good time to go and check out the florals. And then this really cute cotton stem actually came from the Dollar Tree, friends. This is a new product the Dollar Tree is carrying. I love these things so much. I've picked up a whole bunch of them, so you'll be seeing them here a lot. Run to your stores, see if you can find them because they're so pretty and high quality. And then I simply am just taking the two ribbons that I put underneath it. I did a simple loop over. I didn't even knot it. I just looped it over and then brought them down and glued things in place. And now I'm just kind of playing with it, adding in a little bit more eucalyptus, maybe another cotton stem, maybe some of the little greenery that comes off of the eucalyptus, and just playing with it until I feel happy with the look. Then at the end, go ahead and trim the ribbon and display. Leave a comment down below to let me know which was your favorite DIY, if you think you'll try any of them, and if you found them easy to follow. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until the next episode, bye friends.